All right. Good morning, everybody. This is Grace Harris, your host for Women Unleashed. And this morning in Australia, in the afternoon if you're in the United States, in the evening if you're in Europe, I do have a very special guest, and we are going to be talking about how to graduate from pain and grief. What we want to create in this series is intergenerational transformation. And I have put together amazing group of women who are able to transcend adversity in life that are sometimes often unexpected and sometimes self-induced, but nonetheless they have transcended, we have transcended, and what we want to give to you and offer to you are the lessons that we have learned. And this morning, I am so grateful and I am so blessed to share this sacred space of conversation with Sherrie Dunlevy. Sherrie, you're here with me today. How are you?
I'm well, Grace, and you?
I'm very well. Thank you for being here with me today. Tuesday for you and Wednesday for me. Sherrie, I'd like to get started with this interesting topic that we're talking about, graduation from pain and grief. Because everyone suffer from pain and grief, and a lot of us actually are not able to even recognize that. I see a lot of people going through life Groundhog Day and pursuing what they think are going to get them through something that they're not even aware they're going through. And so there's a lot of self-awareness even when you talk about graduation from pain and grief. So my first question is, why this topic? What was your experience with pain and grief?
Well, I had an early introduction to it as an adult. Early in my married life, my husband and I lost our first son back in 1999. And that was an out of order death. Of course, I've experienced the loss of grandparents and people, of an older age, but never someone younger, and especially your own child. So that was my first and very public, because I was a television news anchor at the time, grief journey on display for all to see. And so it was it was challenging. It was very painful, and it could have destroyed my life, because as a reporter, I have seen the death of loved ones destroy other people's lives.
Hmm. And the loss was compounded by dynamics of friendships that have turned their backs on you as well. Was that expected? What was, did that also um, shift the grief into a different level?
It compounded the grief, absolutely. And it wasn't, I don't know that it was an on purpose kind of desertion, but what I've found through the years is that people, when they're going through their hardest times, often have people that are in their inner circle that just don't show up for them, that somehow just fall back from life either by choice or by fear. It's too close to home and it's too scary for them. Their fear of not having the ability to handle this kind of pain, which or just the ignorance of not knowing what to do or say. They just have never had an experience with this, so they're at a loss, so they just don't do anything at all. And I think that if you let too much time pass without offering support or loving kindness in some way, then you start feeling guilty about it. And so you just pull farther and farther apart. And this is not uncommon if you've gone through a divorce or lost your job or have been diagnosed with an illness or have a sick child or a sick parent. People just don't know how to show up for you. And so they don't.
True. Yeah, it is
Some
a
people,
first-hand.
some people.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a first-hand experience that I had, and it took me a couple of years to start to think about maybe they didn't mean to be not there for me.
Right.
But at first it did hurt a lot and compounded the loss.
Oh, it did. And the thing is that I feel that it's more about their fear and about them than it is about you. But that still is not a good enough excuse. We can all do better. So that's why I wrote my book, so that I could help people do it in a way that is supportive, so that the person in crisis feels supported, but that they can choose ways that feel within their level of comfort. They don't have
Yes.
to stretch so far that this is so foreign and so scary for them that they freeze, right? So, yeah, that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah, I can't wait to ask you about the book, How Can I Help? Because that's why we feel inept to help
Mhm.
others because, like you say, it's a fear-based withdrawal. But Sheree, you went back to your Groundhog Day after the loss of your young son.
Mhm.
And how long did you do that until you were faced by another loss or potential loss?
Um, are you talking about like leaving my career? What made me decide to leave my career?
What
Or are
made
you
yeah, how long did you go back to your career as a TV news anchor
well,
and before you were faced by the next potential loss?
uh, I mean, like I lost a grandmother shortly thereafter. Um, I mean, they were like in order losses, but so I went back to work too early actually because I had maternity leave but no baby to care for. So I thought, well, I should probably go back to work. That did not work for me.
Mm.
So I tried to go back and live my Groundhog Day, but it wasn't working like it used to work before. All of a sudden, the day's news, which I was able to keep at bay, like compartmentalize somehow, I wasn't able to do that anymore. And so I went to work, and the news was horrible. And then I come home and the reality of my life was horrible because I didn't have a baby, and just it all melded together and I couldn't do it anymore. So I tried to live a Groundhog Day for a full year, but it was a disaster. And so I had to step back from that.
Mm.
But really, like, the next real true grief experience was 13 years later when my oldest son was getting ready to graduate high school and leave for university. And I realized I was losing my other child, but in a very different way. And so the grief that I had tamped down for my youngest son started bubbling to the top, along with the grief for my current son. And it was like this perfect storm of, I need to get a hold of this. I need to take care of it. I need to work through it. And I need to get better.
Mm. It was so you had an unresolved grief that was triggered by an impending grief. The reason I asked about the time that you spent going back to the Groundhog Day is because there's a concept called the feather, the brick, and the truck. I don't know if you've heard of this, anyone, but it's very common. It's a very common phenomenon that happens to especially highly successful women. Is that when something is not quite aligned with their heart and their soul, there's a feather, which is a whisper from the universe that kind of like tells you from the back of your mind somewhere that, hey, this is really not who you are. But you ignore it because it's just a feeling, right? And then the break comes when something a little bit more sinister happens, like an illness or and then if you keep ignoring that one, then the truck would run you over and something really, really significant, adverse significant thing happens to you. And then you are forced to then create change after you have gone through such severe
Right.
negative transformation. And it's happened to me, and it's like a pattern that I see in many people. And similarly, it's kind of like affected your life as well, Sheree.
Yes.
So we talk about this pain that you had. You've managed to suppress it for a while, and then it became triggered. And triggers are everywhere. You can call it I don't know, an issue or a wound or even the pain body, if you're an Eckhart Tolle follower. Um, Tell me what was that journey like when it was triggered, and how, the journey from OMG, this is my world is falling apart, to I need to do something about this. What was that journey like?
Well, the journey for me was quite different and quite interesting. But if I may backtrack just a second, about the feather and the brick and the Mack truck, I think that I was hearing the feather a long time in my career, that it wasn't the right time for me. Um, there had been maybe some bricks that had fallen, but I was too attached to my identity with it. And then as soon as the Mack truck, which was the death of my son, happened, the priority instantly changed, and it was much easier to make. It was still a very difficult decision to make, but it was easier to make. And as I look in hindsight, I can see that playing out very clearly. I don't think that really necessarily that my son's death was the reason to get me to change that, but it did bring into focus that a change did need to be made in me. So I did want to address that. Now, as far as my journey into the oh my gosh, I've got to do something about it. I actually had started a business because I wanted to write my book, and I needed some extra money to write the book and publish it. And so I hired a coach. And the coach actually, after a couple of sessions, and this was over the phone, he asked me if I knew what a clairaudient was. And I didn't at the time. And he explained to me what a clairaudient was, and told me that every time we meet, he keeps hearing a message. And the only way that it will stop is if he tells me. So he asked my permission if he could relay the message that he was getting. And the message that he was getting was, will not be able to move forward in any other aspect of my life, meaning my business and other things, if I did not address the real problem, which was the grief.
Wow,
Mm-hmm.
that is amazing.
So I still didn't know. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I
Yes.
still didn't know.
Yeah. Now I want to hold on to that for a couple of seconds and go back to it in a minute. We're chopping and we're chopping and going back here, but these are
Right.
important things to talk about. I
Right.
want to go back to where you went back to about your your priority shifted
Mhm.
suddenly.
Right.
So as a TV news anchor, which is a glamorous job, right? Um, I think you mentioned to me before that this is something that you studied for, you trained for, wanted to be, and became one. And so it was an identity that you have been attached to from an early age to become one. And when you became one, this is who I am. And if I'm not this, who else would I be? So tell me, Sherrie, tell me about the belief system that had been ingrained to you, that you woke up one day was just a belief system but did not really align to the heart. How did that play out in your feathers over the years, the whispers that this is not what I want to be?
Just in the not enjoy, you've got what you want. Why aren't you enjoying it? Why aren't you having fun with it? Why aren't you, this is what you work for your whole life. Why are you not liking it? I couldn't figure it out. And there were certain aspects that I liked of it. I loved it when I was, um, raising money during a telethon for Children's Hospital. I was loving it when I was traveling to Nashville and doing entertainment segments. But when I had to go up to someone's door who just lost a child, or someone who just was arrested for embezzlement, or, when I had to do that, oh my gosh, I did not want to go to work that day. I did not want to be that. I did not want, I look back now and I realize I was bringing the worst of the world into people's homes every single day. How could you get joy from that? It resonates. It flies in the face of everything of who I am and what I am about. And
Mm,
but I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that at the time. So
mm,
that's why those feathers of unease were just there. And then, there would be like things that would happen at work that I would come home crying, it was a brick. And I realized, and so then you are attached to, well, if I'm not that, who am I? So here's where I think that this is where I try to help women especially realize is that we're so focused as young adults, especially in the United States. Where are we going to school? What are we going to study? What are we going to do with our career? Will we be married? Will we have children? What kind of income do we want to make? What kind of house do we want to live in? But no one talks to us. What values are important to you? How do you want to show up in this world? Who do you want to become? Who do you want to become? Not what do you want to become?
yeah, that's profound. I mean, you've mentioned a few things there, like um, the attachment to the label, the identity, the belief system. But then the inside the capsule, you have, I love this part of my job, raising funds for the needy, or traveling and being able to showcase the beauty of a place. But then the other part where you're exploiting the sorrow of other people and really highlighting it to the world and making it worse, not for them but for those who don't need to hear it. And it's I must personally admit here, it's a personal pet peeve of mine to turn on and watch the news. I haven't watched the news for years, since 2018, and I know you've shared with me, Sherrie, you don't do that yourself, coming from a former TV anchor herself, TV news anchor. And so I guess, like you mentioned, the values. So I used to work for a bank, and I loved my job there. But it's funny, I remember I was speaking with my financial planner friend, and we were talking about this, the old model of life compared to the new model of life, which is, the old model is like, you are born, you go to school, you finish school, you get a degree, you get married, you have children, you keep working until you're 65, and then you retire, and then you die, and it's complete. But nothing really there, like you said, is asking you, what are your values? Is this what you want to do? Is a degree, is that what you want? Or is having children even for you? Some people
Right.
don't want to have kids. So I really appreciate you being able to simplify that for us, because intergenerational transformation begins with values, begins with, who am I?
Yes.
Now, I'm very interested. My next question is that, and this is a lot for me, as much as it is for everyone, because you mentioned it was over the phone, your first two sessions with was it a counselor or a psychologist, if you would correct
It
me?
was it was a business coach.
A business coach. Wow. Um, what I love about whoever that business coach is he really honored something. He didn't hold back, but he asked your permission. Because how many business coaches are there that are going to say to you, hey, I am actually a clairvoyant or a clairaudient or a clairtransient, and right now I am getting this for you. I need to give it to you, but only with your permission. So I just want to honor him. Now, so obviously you weren't getting it at the time until
No.
he had to directly channel the message. How did you receive the message when this business coach was telling you this?
I first of all, I was shocked. I'm like, how did you even know? Right. He was in California. I'm in the state of West Virginia. It's thousands of miles apart. And so how did he know that? He said, I didn't know that. I'm just relaying a message. And how did I receive it? I went, he's right. I mean, the message is right and true. And um, yeah, I have to say, I have been blessed with an open mind and an open heart. So if someone is going to give me a gift like that, I am going to be a gracious receiver of it. I'm not one to poo-poo stuff. Um,
That's
so I received the message, and he connected me with a grief coach, and my life changed in 8 weeks. My life opened up, like it was given back to me.
I feel like when you do experience pain so deep and grief so deep, it does open you up. It
Mhm.
hurts, but it does open you up. And often, what we need comes from the oddest sources.
It
Like,
does, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah, it does. But that just proves that we live in an abundant universe, and that it is always available to us if we open ourselves up to the possibility. A broken heart can be an open heart, but a broken heart can also shrivel up and die. And I didn't do that. And I'm so glad I didn't. And that's a choice you have to make early on.
so tell us, how do we graduate from pain and grief? What do we do?
Well, I think that it's a process, but I think that so many times people live with this. I think that what happened for me is that what what I didn't know then versus what I know now is like night and day. And that's why I'm so passionate about my message. My son lived for 29 days, and his life was not supposed to be any more or less than that. And so if I move from there, then I have to say to myself, so I'm still here. What am I going to do with the rest of my life? And my son, even though he didn't leave a hospital, and no one really truly got to meet him, is still impacting lives 23 years later. So every life matters. Every life can make an impact. And if we are given another day, how dare we hold back from using our lives to positively impact others? So that's where the graduation comes from. It comes from deep pain. It comes from the realization that all of our lives matter, that we need to take what we have, and we can. It's a graduation of living in the darkness to the grayness to the full living color. It's a graduation of moving from deep pain to healing, to transformation, and to joy. There's so many ways that we can graduate and transform. It doesn't necessarily, I put it into an academy, quote unquote, but it can mean so much to so many.
Hmm. And is it a straightforward path to graduate?
No, no. And it doesn't mean that you will never return to pain, that you will ever forget your loved ones, because so many people are afraid that if they heal, if they move through grief, they're somehow leaving their loved one behind. And you're not. You're carrying them with you as you continue to live your life. It
Wow.
doesn't mean you love them less because you can laugh and heal and have joy in your life. It doesn't mean that their life didn't have as much meaning. It can be so much more than that.
Mm. Mm. Wow, that's profound because it is very common. That's one of the first signs I see in many people, especially when it comes to the grief of death. Like spouses, young married couple, I personally know a couple out there. Um, the spouse that's been left behind does not move on for the fear of dishonoring the memory of the other spouse, and or even so that's a it this could hurt to a lot of people out there. It could trigger a fear of abandonment even. Like how dare you suggest to me to abandon the memory of this person that I love? How do
Yeah, I'm
we?
not. Yeah, I'm not saying that at all. I love my son dearly, and if I could go back and change it, I would, but I can't. So if I stay, I was telling someone today, I feel as if you stay stuck, then two lives are lost. Two lives are lost. And that's kind of selfish because all of our lives can make an impact and all of our lives have meaning. And if we stop there, then you're not just missing out on your life, but the world is missing out on you and your gifts and your lessons that you could have learned from this and your goodness that you could have given to others as you moved through this. And so you're shortchanging yourself, but you're shortchanging the world.
It really is shortchanging the world, isn't it? We talk about legacy. In what I do, it's called Become the Woman of Your Dreams Academy, and the highest level of that academy is legacy. And I once heard one of my favorite people, Oprah Winfrey, her friend Maya Angelou, had once said to her when she was saying to Maya Angelou, "Oh, I opened a school in South Africa. It's my legacy." And then Maya Angelou says to her, "That's not your legacy. Your legacy is every person's life that you touch." And so what happens is that when we are touched by a life, we become part of that life, and that life becomes part of the world. We are all connected. And if you, like you said, if you truncate not one life but two lives by refusing to move on, then you have truncated a lot of legacy there, which is
Right.
really, you have effectively cut off intergenerational transformation that you are meant to move forward and carry over. And so I love what you said there, that there's even a bigger picture to graduation from pain and grief. It's not just about moving on, really
Right.
about leaving that legacy.
Right. And it's, my son continues to make an impact 23 years later because I decided to graduate from my grief, right? My son is still touching lives and he lived 29 days. So if he could do that without leaving a hospital bed, without doing anything, then how much would it be possible for me to do? And how dare I hold that back? Right. So I just feel that it can be a beautiful way, and it brings meaning and purpose to what happened. I don't have a choice in what happened. I only have a choice in how I move through it and forward with my life. It's the
Mm,
only thing I can choose. That I can control. And I
mm,
can't control how my life will go, but I'm doing the best I can with what I have, and I'm proud of it. And I'm much happier in this
mm,
space, much happier in this space. So much more, like you were saying, I feel so much more aligned.
mm.
Um, and that is my joy, even though it came from the most difficult, painful thing that ever happened in my life, hands down.
Wow. Thank you so much for such deep, deep wisdom, but also very simple ways of being able to create that meaning and purpose, like you said. Sherrie, there are so many grieving women, people that are watching us, people that are in pain, having had loss, not necessarily from death, watching us and listening to us. So, when it comes to meaning and purpose,
Mhm.
for those who are experiencing it directly or watching someone that they love and care about experiencing it right now, you've written this book, How Can I Help?
Mhm.
Tell us about where, just one or two places where we can start, to help others and to help ourselves find this meaning and purpose in very simple ways, so we can have, like you say, happy and strong lives.
Right. Well, if you're supporting someone who's going through a really rough time, honestly, the best answer that I can give you is show up and be there for them. Even though it might feel scary for you or awkward for you, you are never, this is an unfixable situation. So you're not, so let yourself off the hook. You can't fix it. There's nothing you can say or do that's going to make it all better. Okay. But there are things that you can say or do that just allow the person the space that they need. And like you said, the sacred space to tell their story, the sacred space to cry, the sacred space to process whatever has happened in a way that feels right for them. So they really don't even have to say any words. And if you can't physically be there, you can show up, you can leave voice messages, voicemails. They don't have to respond to you. Don't take offense if they don't. Just say, I'm thinking of you today. I'm sending you light and love. I'm sending up prayers for you. I'm here. I'm going to call again next week. I'm going to check on you. If you feel like picking up, that's fine. And if you don't, that's fine too. I'm going to call again and I'm going to call again. And one day they will pick up and they will say, you know what? I just couldn't talk, but just hearing your voice helped so much. Thank you. So there are ways that we can show up that, we don't have to show up on their doorstep. Although if you can, that would be nice, if they're open to it, right? On the other hand, for people that are grieving, if your friend is showing up, they're saying something that's awkward, something that maybe, a lot of, well, they're better off now, that will anger so many people. Did they mean that to hurt you, or was their intention to add healing? If their intention was to add healing, then extend some grace towards them. We're awkward at this. We're not good at this because none of us talk about it. None of us talk about it. We're doing the best we can. So accept it as an awkward phrase, accept it from the space from which it was given, and thank them for showing up for you. Because you know what? There are a lot of people who their people have not shown up for them. So that's what I would say.
Wow. Very simple, but very, 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 very important, because we don't see the effect of these connections until years and years later, once the healing has been sort of through. I don't believe healing is really ever done with. We're
No.
always constantly evolving. But
Yes.
you've mentioned about 20 minutes ago things like in hindsight. And so these moments of connections are always going to be beautiful moments when you get to the point of the hindsight.
Right.
Just doing these little tips.
And you
Beautiful.
can get there.
And it's different timeline for everyone, isn't it, Sherrie?
It is. And the thing is that, some people want to hold on to their grief and it's mine and you can't take it away. And so when someone suggests that they seek counseling or seek healing or seek support, they feel as if someone's coming in and trying to take something that is theirs. I would say, you know what, maybe if you're a few years out and people are still saying that to you, they're seeing that you're in a state of pain and they really want you to choose hope and healing. You don't have to hold on to that forever. It doesn't have to be yours, unless you choose that. I just want to, I am here to plant the seeds of hope and healing. You might not be okay right now, but if you take the steps to move through the grief and do the work, you will be okay. And that's the difference between what I didn't know when I lost my son versus this past year when I've lost my dog and my father and my best friend from high school and college. Rapid fire losses. And as I was going through each one, I just knew that I was going to be okay. And even though I wasn't okay in the minute, and even though I wasn't okay in my grief, just knowing that I would be was enough. And maybe it's just enough for someone else too. You will be okay. You will be. there are enough resources out there. There is enough support out there. If you plug into it and you dedicate to doing the work to work through it, you will be okay too. It's possible. And I'm living proof.
Thank you so much. This is a beautiful, beautiful time with you. How can we have more of you, hear more from you, and actually work with you, Sherrie? How do we find you?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I have a positive grief support group called Graduating Grief, Loving Life After Loss. I have the Graduating Grief podcast where I have other examples of living proof. We talk with other people about their grief journey and how they moved through. And then I have the Graduating Grief Academy, which anyone can take the quiz for free. It's graduatinggrief.com/quiz. You can take the quiz and then schedule an appointment to have your assessment with me and see if you're ready. But that's how you can get in touch with me, graduatinggrief.com, and just find it on Facebook and all your social media outlets.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It has been really refreshing. I know that's a bit of a funny word to use given our topic, but it has been quite refreshing to be able to hear about hope and healing, that you will be okay, and finding the meaning and the purpose within your pain and grief. And that graduation really, like Sherrie says, is not necessarily a straightforward journey, but it is a journey that is honoring not just for the one life that had been lost or for the loss that you have, but two lives and the legacy that we create. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Sherrie. I have loved today, and we will see you all again. Bye, everybody.